Welcome back to Making It Awkward. I'm your host, Jessica Wilson. This podcast is turning 1, and today I'm celebrating by looking back at the first season, including some highs, lows, and most awkward moments. I end with a return to a very puzzling conversation with Amy, and then my dad's message for all of you. I'd been thinking about this podcast for years, but finally decided it was time after the Trans Health Summit in San Francisco. I recapped a conversation there with my coworker, Calvin. Yeah, your setup of what this conference is like is, yes, mostly trans folks and folks who are aligned. And then there's the surgeons.
Right.
So the very first session, briefly, was with a surgeon who was just trying to talk about how great he was, pretty much, but like made the mistake of asking people in the group what they wanted to hear about. Got to me, I wanted to hear more about BMI cutoffs and gender affirming care. And from that point on, like half the people around the room said that. And he was like, oh, I hadn't put that on my list of things I wanted to talk about. I'm very familiar with that. So, I was thinking if anybody wants to hear something new, I was like, oh.
What?
Yeah. So I'm like, cool. You were familiar with my face from this because I'm the first one to say that. So yeah, he was the first one that JM introduced me to and said, like, this is Jessica. This is all that she's doing. That guy couldn't look at me, was like very uncomfortable. Like the hand that shook me was definitely shaky.
Shaking.
Oh yeah. And the very cold, clammy, which, some people's hands are, and that's fine. But it was just like this vibe in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
This is what's happening here. And I was like, let's see if this is a pattern. And then that is when I turned to my now favorite doctor, who then asked if I worked the arts and crafts table. So all of that had been like the backdrop for me coming into this presentation. And it was actually the morning of the presentation was like, I can't make this shit up. I need a podcast to talk more about these things, because this is definitely not the first time these things have happened. As you all have likely gleaned, I love an awkward moment. For those watching on YouTube and Spotify, you can see that I created some bling to meet the moment. I find that we can learn so much about others, ourselves, and really how people are influenced in the cringiest of moments. Another fact about me, I'm a bish who loves a good deal, and we learned that a good deal can go too far.
Happy 2024, almost Pride Month, where we get ads for Ozempic to lose weight for Pride, which is a fucking nightmare. So yeah, sending love, sending abundance and presents, and happy Pride, and fuck Ozempic. Bye.
Now, my interview with Steve Dunn is currently the most listened to episode on the platform. I think that Whitney had one of the better questions for Steve.
I guess my question is, and I forgive me for being frustrated, Jessica and I have been saying these exact things, because Jessica was my first call 2020 when I was thinking about that. And I had every qualification to get, they had the grant. I think December 31st, 2020 was the last date to get grandfathered in. But I think my frustration now is you've got 2 Black clinicians in the ED field that combined have been in EDs probably 2 decades.
Easy.
Why? What is it about you delivering this lawsuit versus us saying this that people are finally paying attention? Why do you think that is?
Good question. She also had a great summary of the conversation.
When white men do DEI. That's what it should have been.
The title.
Yeah. I mean, it can be next time. That kind of goes along with the men should not try to be great men, or something like that. The Star Trek quote.
Yeah.
And I was like, that you're leaning into that very hard right now. That's a hard lean.
Yeah.
Steve's episode was also my first experience with dubbing.
And you take the case of Lindo Bacon. Are you two aware of what she went through? And she was.
Wait, I just want to correct you. I believe their pronouns they them.
Yes.
They them. Yes.
Yes. And he was the largest advocate that the ASDAH had for Hayes. Wrote books on it.
And Steve was just the first guest who had a strong, passionate response to a part 2 of their interview. This week, Steve posted a 1,100 plus word blog entry about the feedback episode, including the text of his email exchanges with me and Whitney. To be honest, after the second paragraph ended with, I thought there was a feeling of respect, of professionalism, of courtesy. I certainly extended those qualities to the two hosts. However, it would appear that those feelings of respect and professionalism on the part of the esteemed hosts may have ended that day, if they existed at all, end quote. After that, I skimmed most of it and skipped right on over to see what he'd quoted from my emails, because I can be a bit spicy at times. Something that continued to come up over the season was how tightly our food narratives are wrapped by both morality and elitism. Like, I work with people who live on the streets or in shelters and stuff like that.
Right, understood. You could buy a Trader Joe's salad, and they are about $3.99.
Okay.
And you could eat, with maybe with some chicken in it, and a dressing, and you could eat half of it today, and you could eat half of it tomorrow. And that would be just the same price as that can of Chef Boyardee. And it would be a whole lot healthier, a whole lot better for you.
Does Dr. Lustig know where Trader Joe's are located and where they are not? He also had wild expectations of the population.
Think of it this way. Okay?
I would like to go back
to a really, really classy, upscale, nice restaurant.
I haven't. I'm a regular person who works at a clinic for not that much money.
Okay. All right. So if you ever go to a 4-star restaurant, the portion sizes are really small. They don't give you very much.
Correct.
In fact, you look at this huge plate and you look at this small portion of whatever it is, shrimp or crab or whatever it is, in the middle of the plate, and you go, what the hell am I paying for?
I couldn't find what a 4-star restaurant actually is. You can get 4 stars on Google, but somehow I don't think that's what he was talking about. You can get up to 3 Michelin stars, so maybe Lustig was talking about restaurants with 4 dollar signs. That's probably it.
Right, like if you eat this way, you'll be rich.
Lindsay, do you know who these people are?
I feel like I have a passing familiarity with these people. I see them on Instagram and they are recommended to me. Instagram thinks that I am a trad wife who is raising my 8 children in the image of the Lord. It's definitely people who want to feel like they're in control of their health and well-being, and people who also are in a disproportionately privileged position to take on a lot of work and spend a lot of money to feel like they're making healthier choices. And definitely a weird way of bringing us back around through a different path to traditional gender roles, because it's such an enormous amount of work that who is possibly going to have time to go to the, drive an extra 30 minutes to the ethical butcher and to make the bread and to do all of these other things. And that is probably going to fall on somebody whose labor is historically less valued. And so it puts you in a position of somehow you are I am in the kitchen making bread for my husband while he goes to work, but in a progressive way. And if that is fulfilling for you and you have time, then make your bread. But why are you doing it? How does it make you feel about yourself? And are you right? Is it good? Are you good at making bread even?
For this recap, I got to apply one of my favorite words, obfuscation, to a lot of the beliefs I heard in the season and can extend it far beyond this podcast. Focusing on addressing individual behaviors, the idea that people get to make choices, and how targeting fast food and big food corporations is a great distraction from the policies and one's role in upholding systems that keep things like food apartheid in place.
This has to be a kink. This has to be not to kink. Not saying, people are allowed to like what they like, and maybe that's just what this is.
And you all are probably not surprised that Dr. David Weiss quickly climbed to one of the top 5 episodes.
So the agenda in this conversation, financial agenda, okay. And this is what I like to call the commercial determinants of health.
And then there was Sasha, also in the top 5, who, in addition to having problems with dietitians who make cereal ads, he also had thoughts on corporations.
I think where
the evidence is strong, is that we shouldn't be shutting down the conversation about the role of diet and food supply in our health. I think the food industry would like that, but I think that would be a disservice to public health more broadly.
Yeah, when you were looking at the Instagram and social media of the anti-diet community, do you feel like they were shutting down the argument entirely, or say focusing on social determinants of health?
I think that there certainly is a focus on social determinants of health, which I think is a very valid part of the picture.
Okay.
But I think that nutrition is a huge part of the picture as well.
Public health tells us they want to make the healthy choice the easy choice. And Clara Nozick told us the easy choice for those in journalism, which we can also apply to public health and nutrition studies.
But why wouldn't you lob this ball into the air where you have the opportunity to shit on processed foods, to shit on women? Mm-hmm. I guess that's the positive change, that we all get to do something together.
And Delina Soto discussed how the scientification of cultural foods is often completely unnecessary.
And it's so beautiful how we have all of these dishes and traditions and foods that provide so much nutrition. And we didn't have the quote unquote science and research to be like, oh my God, this is so great and, so nutritious. Mm-hmm. Like indigenous cultures created these dishes that literally provided everything that we needed. And they had their own science, right? They had their own way to cultivate, but they didn't need research. Like they didn't need to know amino acids and vitamins and things like that. They just knew that they were thriving.
We also learned how easy it is to make up a problem in the name of health and then call it science. Then people can create solutions to that problem that either advance their career and or make them money.
It's kind of weirdly related to the Heisenberg principle of where you can't measure something without being a part of it, without changing it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like all of this research that we've been doing, the categories for eating disorders, let's say.
Oh, okay.
Go right back to that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a bunch of guys standing around and kind of looking at this phenomenon, like, what's going on with these girls? And they're kind of like, yeah, like they're so thin. Mm-hmm. And then another person is like, yeah, and they're throwing up. Oh my gosh, and then another person is like, oh no, but they're really eating a ton of food, like, oh my God. And it's like all the reactions are become the characteristics of the diagnoses. Yeah, right. It becomes the way that people decide to carve up the descriptions.
Wow. People are just looking at shit and making it up.
Yes, they are.
You all probably remember Dr. Deb Burgard. She was another in the top 5.
When this happened to you, I think I said something to you like, oh gosh, here comes the sphinctered up. Kind of.
You said that should be the title.
Yeah, when they see us coming, they sphincter up. Just kind of that whole thing that I saw on the faces of those people in the studio audience.
And had many examples of some of the awkwardness you've been able to listen to on the show.
I'm looking at you, you're looking at me, you're saying, nah. Mm-mm. And I ended up just saying out loud, nope, from the back of the room. Nope, we're not going to do this.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so now we are in the Twilight Zone, right? Like so.
From the back of a large room, there are multiple people. So Lisa was there with you, Kara was standing with you, and it was just like, we are pausing.
Yeah.
This, especially because the organization had said, we're so dedicated to social justice.
Yeah.
This year. And I'm like, this is what it looks like if you're really about social justice, is not letting this go on.
It was a brouhaha. And I was walking out of that room and I was walking back to go to the next thing or something. And there had been a room set aside as a hospitality room for the BIPOC attendees.
Mm-hmm.
And I just heard hilarity. The door was closed, but it was like everybody was just in stitches. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God. This is such a good sign
And then there's one awkward moment that is now a core memory filed away in my brain. For those who are new here, indeed, this is absolutely a real letter that I received from my copy editor in my book publishing process.
Dearest Jessica Wilson, I must say that I, a cishet white woman, emerge from this assignment with an entirely enlightened perspective on the experience of Black/women/bodies/food/size/identities/health realities. Thank you for this. Saying it was a privilege to be witness to these realities sounds too, well, what? Of course it is, to use your phrase. But there we have it. I witnessed in the most neutral and at the same time most non-neutral way I could. I grew up fascinated by my mother's New England childhood mammy, 1930s. Her name was Geneva. If asked to name my top 3 early childhood memories, Geneva would be one. I have only one faded photo of her. She was shiny jet black, a huge towering woman who had to enter doors sideways to fit through. Aproned, red checkered kerchief, gold hoop earrings, kind, but not maternal. She arrived one day with a large wound across her neck. Her husband had tried to slit her throat. Whenever I visited my grandparents, there were children's library books, a little present, and a pickaninny doll, whom my mother had named Cheerio. That says it all, right? Waiting for me on the green velveteen Victorian fainting couch. I inherited Cheerio. And I love her. Even as a little girl, I was always aware that she represented something more than the archetype white culture assigned to her, something with a very other side. I can properly witness for that other through my relationship with her. And now, through your book. And thank goodness I work alone in my cozy cabin, because if I worked around other people, I would have been told to pipe it down a whole lot of notches as I laughed out loud near continuously for the 10 whole days I spent copy editing your book, still massaging my aching jaw. I wish you all good things, whatever that looks like for you.
Yep, that did happen.
Another favorite from season 1 is
Amy's attempt at figuring out what an ultra-processed food actually is. She's the chemical engineer, and I brought all of the papers and articles on ultra-processed foods to her processing plant to see if she could help me out. And you might be surprised that after this complete brain-bending exercise, we're still good friends.
Amy, with your actual expertise, can you do a brief breakdown of group 1, group 2, group 3, and then the ultra scary, ultra processed foods?
Okay, so I struggle with this a great deal, as Jessica and I have discussed. Group 1, I think, is mostly supposed to be like what we used to call like whole foods, like fresh produce, meat. But there are terms in here like fractioning, which is very confusing to me because that's also part of what makes something an ultra-processed food. And none of the examples that I can see are what I would call fractioning. Sugar is in group 2, but I would consider it group 1 because to make sugar, you crush sugar cane and you boil it, which are both mentioned in the minimally processed category of group 1.
Okay. So then group 2.
So, I mean, I guess Jessica's like, oh wait, you all can see me. Okay. Because the difference here to me, I guess, is that it's ingredients. Because also vegetable oil, to get vegetable oil, I guess it's the refining, but like extra virgin olive oil, you just crush olives and you take off the first fraction. Again, back to my point about one. Like one, I feel like the lines don't make sense to me.
Okay. And then we have, another group 3, which is now a processed food situation after having unprocessed or minimally processed culinary ingredients in group 2. And now we have group 3.
Which is just processed foods. I mean, I guess it's the key is what's a food versus an ingredient. So group 2, you probably wouldn't eat just straight. Though, like, they sell those honey sticks, and like I've definitely seen people just like eat butter.
And where would like a nut butter be?
I don't know. That's too much. I don't know. Would a canned vegetable just in like water go back to group 1? They don't list anything canned.
I feel like this is Monopoly. All right.
I just for edification, my background is chemical engineering and my brain works in a really like bullet points kind of way. I'm very good at firm boxes. These boxes are squishy.
Okay, we're gonna skip to the scary ultra-processed foods.
I mean, I think the big thing here is that you're adding like stabilizers, emulsifiers, things like that. Like, I think that's the real difference. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I still question that because like some emulsifiers, like egg yolk is a very commonly occurring emulsifier.
Right.
So like eggs are in group 1. So if you bought like a mayonnaise that was with emulsified with egg, which is how you would also make homemade mayo. Is that bad? Because it mentions emulsifiers, but like eggs and oil are group 1 and 2, which would make it 3. But is it 3? Or is it 4?
And y'all have shown your love for an episode series on a particular topic, so I hope to bring us more conversations that need some digging into. A massive thank you to all of the listeners who have emailed questions and voice memos to this show. You all have truly made it what it is today. One of my favorite examples of the community vibe of this podcast was when Whitney jumped into my interview with Dr. Deb Burgard just to ask a consult question.
Hey!
Hello. Oh my.
I was just telling Jessica, I think the work that you're doing is something that teaches me, and I just want to support you. You know, I just want to lift it up.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Whitney, is there a question or topic you want?
Yeah, make sure that we cover today.
Ooh, so many. Your hair looks amazing, by the way, Jess.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I did not know early onset precocious puberty that doctors can deny you based on race because they believe that young Black and Latina girls go through puberty earlier.
This has truly been a community project, and I look forward to all of you being a part of the conversation. To start season 2, I'll be taking pitches for episodes, topics, and interviews. I've gotten one request, quote, "I'd love a deep dive on ancient Chinese medicine / traditional medicine practices versus functional medicine / nutrition, where it gets fuzzy, and the pipeline to alternative wellness." And that's something that may take a little bit for me to get into, but don't worry, it'll come at you in season 2. As the second season gets going, I'll also invite you to share your awkward moments or any awkward feedback that you've gotten. You can send an email or voice memo with your experiences to makingitawkwardpod@gmail.com, and we can cringe along with you. The next 2 episodes have some pretty cringy feedback and questions asked of my guest. And we live for them here. If you're interested in celebrating this anniversary with me, you can join the Patreon. You can also rate the show or write a review. Feel free to guide new listeners to your favorite episode in your review. And don't forget what my dad said. And until next time, keep making it awkward.
Yeah, please do. I mean, be the unexpected.
Thanks to America's favorite editor, Jen Jacobs, for making sure we all sound amazing and that our social media clips and videos for Spotify and YouTube are dazzling. This has been and will continue to be Making It Awkward. I have always been and still am Jessica Wilson. This is a production of The Body Politic. It is sponsored by you all and the Legacy of Sacramento Outboard Services. Also,
the best way to support this podcast is to rate it, review it, just tell 4 friends. You know what? Tell 5 friends about this show. Subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make it awkward, babies. I almost had it. I'm leaving that last. Okay. I know you are. I could have been cool.